Okay, welcome. The financial advisors who are seeing the biggest gains with AI aren't necessarily the most tech savvy. They're the ones who've made a mindset shift, right? They're treating AI as a collaborator that strengthens their judgment, sharpens their ideas, and frees up time to focus on clients. Today, once again, I am joined by Horsesmouth Editor-in-Chief Sean Bailey, who is also the leader of the upcoming AI-powered advisor workshop. And he's going to share with us this mindset shift, the number one mindset shift that separates dabblers from advisors who are truly using AI to build momentum in their practice. So, Sean, to begin, you personally have logged over 3,000 hours with AI, and of course, that number is climbing rapidly day by
Yeah, it could be
day.
approaching 4,000 by now, but I think I
Yeah.
figured that out about 6 months ago, starting from like March of 2023. So it was a few months after ChatGPT came out, November of 2022.
Yeah, but you've often compared the moment to your first time opening Netscape, your first forays into AI, to your first time opening Netscape, back in the 90s. So you want to tell us that story?
Yeah. I came up through the newspaper business. I was a journalist, and as early as 1978, I was publishing and working on newspapers. That went on all the way through the 90s, all the way through the 80s and into the mid 90s. And then in the fall of 1995, people may remember, that's when Microsoft's Windows 95 came out and was making a lot of news. But also during leading up to that period of time, right around then, um, I, being a former newspaper person at that point in time, I was checking in with some colleagues, and a colleague, I was at a newspaper where I used to work, and somebody waved me over and said, "Here, I got to show you this thing." And they had a copy of the Netscape browser. Prior to that time on the internet, people could they used something called a links browser. It was all text, and you used your four arrows on the computer keyboard to move a cursor through the text. And where there was a hyperlink, you would move the cursor over it through maneuvering, and then you would hit enter, and it would launch you to another page filled with text in a similar manner. The Netscape browser, of course, had images and color in it. It looked and started to look and looked a lot like, USA Today in terms of color and layout and all that sort of thing. And so when I saw that, this Netscape browser, I have to say, coming up through the print world, and I saw how relatively easy it was to learn HTML and create a simple web page. I practically fell on the ground. I was so shocked at, this sudden new power that was at our fingertips. And I knew right away that it was going to totally change everything, including the newspaper business. And, unfortunately, that newspaper where I was at that point in time, like many daily newspapers around the country, have been completely beggared by the impacts of the internet. So you get the good and the bad, right? But anyway, that was my Netscape story from back in the 90s. Well, in the spring of 2023, March, I was preparing to do a deep dive on what this, ChatGPT thing is. And uh, boy, it didn't take too long for me to suddenly realize this is every bit as big as discovering the Netscape browser in the 1990s, but is going to have, even greater impact on society, on life, how we work, how we learn, and how we try and solve problems too. And so so that's kind of my Netscape moment. I had it again. And that is what has caused me to be able to say, yes, I've logged over 3,000 hours with AI, because when I saw what it could do in March of 2023, What can I say? Doug, we worked. That's what, of course, why we're here today. And so anyway, Doug, I think in terms of the mindset shift, that improvements across all fronts, both with the improvements across all fronts, both with the user interface on how to work with these tools and on, what they can do and the kinds of results they're getting. And so, yeah, when I say that it's not about the prompts, it's about learning how to think with AI. That is the framework that I think is most important for advisors and for the ones who are succeeding now. And by the way, you mentioned the word dabblers. We did a survey. We published the results just recently. We did one came out a year ago last July, and then we came out again this July. And we saw a doubling of what I would call power users, people who are advisors who are using AI every day. That went from around 12% to around 24%. But we have this huge middle of dabblers, of people who say, yes, I'm using AI at work, but I'm using it a couple times a week, once a month. And that's a huge, like 54% middle or something like that. And then there's like another 20% of advisors who still aren't using it, right? So we're still early days here. And but what we're seeing is the ones who are succeeding are the ones who, yes, understand absolutely the importance of understanding how to write prompts, how to talk with the AI models to get them to do what you want them to do. So the prompts are really, really important. But as I was mentioning before, so much is happening now. So the technology is changing very rapidly. And uh, the prompts are always going to be important. They're going to be foundational to understanding. But what we're really looking at is a total mindset shift in how you think about going about your work, right? And I'm quite fond of referencing Ethan Mollick's book, Co-Intelligence. Mollick is a professor of innovation at the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. And, he says uh, you should use as a rule of thumb any task that you're about to engage in. If it's going to take you more than 5 minutes to complete the task, you should turn to the AI model and ChatGPT and have a conversation with it first about whatever challenge or task is that you are looking at. And so that is where the mindset shift really is happening with these advisors who are using AI interwoven through their workflow all day long. So that's the mind shift. And it's not about the prompts, it's about recognizing that we have a super smart co-intelligence. 2 years ago, we were saying, think of it as a very smart intern. Well, in a minute, we're going to talk about the latest research. It shows just how smart these AI models are. And they're a lot smarter than a smart intern. And so then the real challenge becomes, okay, I have this on-demand, super smart intelligence. What is the right way for me to use this very powerful tool in carrying out my business, working with my team, working with my clients, trying to solve problems, trying to build my business. And so it's this mindset shift that is really um, uh, the more important thing. And when I talk about mindset shift, I also like to refer to the work of Carol Dweck. She was a psychologist. She published a book back in the early 2000s called, I think it's called Mindset Shift. And she talks about growth mindsets versus fixed mindsets. Okay. And so, and what this means is that some people tend to think, oh, you finish high school, you finish college, I've learned what I need to learn. And, I'm kind of done. The world accept me as I am. And I'm going to accept you as you are using what I've learned up to that point in time. That is a fixed mindset, okay? And it is a mindset that is ultimately going to be very difficult to succeed in life and in this world, especially with these new AI technologies. Now, advisors who have a growth mindset, they're the ones who recognize that, hey, we're in a constant state of professional development. We're always needing to learn new things. And along comes this amazing technology that, that is, part answer machine, part intellectual collaborator, and part very smart intern. It can do all sorts of things. And so this mindset shift is critical. And the ones who are succeeding, right, those 24% of advisors who are using it, throughout the day are the ones who um, have some flexible thinking and are learning to use this tool to um, to great success.
Okay, I wonder if you want to address some of the skepticism that advisors can have around, in the early days, especially, there was a lot of talk about hallucinations and, a lot of doubt. Can you trust what
Right.
ChatGPT or other tools are telling you? What's the current state of that situation look like, in your opinion?
Yeah, and particularly, first impressions can are very powerful, right? And so when ChatGPT, 3.5 was out there in the spring of 2023, when I was getting involved, there was an economist out west. I can't remember the school, but I'm in the middle of actually working on. So he published a paper. He took 11 personal finance challenges, fairly common things like, okay, I'm going to buy a house. I can put down $200,000 and the mortgage rate is, 4%, or I could put down 300,000 and like, what makes the best of, what's the best approach, right? It's like 11 of these core financial issues that all our clients and all of us struggle with, right? And this economist wrote a paper where he had tested ChatGPT 3.5 on these 11, foundational personal finance issues, and ChatGPT got every single one of them wrong. And he wrote a paper that was published last May, I mean, a year ago last May. So in May of, what's it now, 25? May of 2024, the article was published, um, where he was totally blowing out of the water the notion that AI could be even remotely helpful to a financial planner or to anyone for that matter. And he rolled out his research from actually a year before, spring of 2023. Uh, and like I said, the AI models got all these questions wrong, but they were very confident in their wrong answers. Okay, which is another unusual aspect of working with artificial intelligence, right? We thought when the robots arrived that they would, be like, danger, danger, Will Robinson on, Lost in Space or whatever the case may be. And it turns out that these AI models are very, very fluent and can be very warm and charming in the manner in which they communicate with us. But yes, there were problems. The problems were that they were getting a lot of things wrong, but things since then have changed dramatically. And I just this summer, working with somebody on our staff, we went back to those 11 personal finance prompts that that economist had used in writing that paper. And guess what? The new reasoning models that ChatGPT or that OpenAI has been using to run ChatGPT, they got all 11 of those questions correct. So we've seen a dramatic change, and we're seeing that these models, in fact, aren't hallucinating. And particularly, the hallucinations, just, for anyone who's listening and never heard the phrase in this context, it's simply meaning that they were confidently saying things that didn't exist or were totally wrong. Okay. I don't have those kinds of experiences with my AI use, and most of the people who go through our training programs don't as well. Because when you learn how to think with AI, then you learn how to structure your prompts, you learn how to engage it in the right way. These things about hallucinations totally go away. But I want to report to our viewers right now, though, two new papers that came out just this last August, right? One was from OpenAI and the other was from Google. And this goes to the whole question of, right, how smart are these AI models now? And so the OpenAI published this white paper that showed that their new ChatGPT 5, which is a reasoning model, it's actually a suite of different large language models. And when you engage ChatGPT in the background, it looks at your question, it decides how to feed the interaction through these different models. Okay. So these models, the ChatGPT 5, um, it's scored on a particular math test. It scored 94.6, okay, on a test that's referred to as the AIME 25, right? Um, on another test, it had graduate level reasoning. It scored 88.4%, right? And then in the world of coding, which, when people look at the ChatGPT interface and they see the various models that are in there, most financial advisors aren't going to be using those models. They're really more for software developers. And the world of software development is changing dramatically because of these AI models as well. Because, writing code is like writing language, and they're trained on all the code as well. And so these new reasoning models are on software tests are also scoring very, very as high as high or higher than human programmers will as well. Okay, and so taken together, the OpenAI report said that their new reasoning mode had cut hallucination rates. Particularly, one portion of the test was about medical questions, right? Reduced their error rate on medical questions to 1.6%. Okay. So that means they're getting it right, like, what's that, 97.5% of the time, 98, yep, something like that. Like, yep. So, right, that's big. Then Google also last month came out and they were using their new Gemini 2.5 Pro and they put it into a live IQ competition and it achieved an adult IQ equivalent score of 137, the highest standardized Mensa score reported this year. So you can see we've come a long, long way in just 2 years in terms of the actual brain power of these tools. And this is why it's so important for advisors to understand really the best way to collaborate with this on-demand intelligence. And, that's what our training programs are all about, is helping advisors get on board in this kind of way.
Okay, so maybe you can give us an idea of how an advisor can, you know, think about AI in the day to day and when they would use it in the day to day, and maybe if you have a prompt that might be help us to visualize that, that'd be great too.
Yeah, yeah. So in our program, in our training programs of advisors, it's all 100% translating this strategic thinking about using AI into absolute tactics that are 100% advisor related. And so all throughout the last year, we've been teaching advisors the AI powered financial advisor program. It's basically intro to AI for financial advisors. And whenever we get into the second session, where we're starting to apply our thinking and our prompting frameworks into actual things like, I've got a client coming in tomorrow who has a particular financial planning challenge. What if I take 5 minutes right now and, not revealing any of the personal identifiable information of my client, but what if I spend some time with ChatGPT and we have, kind of a bit of open-ended brainstorm about the client meeting, the agenda that we're going to have around this particular issue, right? And so advisors in our class, when we're showing them how to do this and how to, apply this thinking to a practical, practice management approach, preparing for a meeting with a client. Wow, advisors started coming in the very next day and saying, oh my God, I cannot believe, this is what I did. And it created this amazing in-depth agenda. We had this back and forth, and the agenda was totally in-depth and customized for the particular client's issues. And then I ended up having the meeting, and it turned out they always report that they're having very successful reactions from the clients as well, because the AI model directed by the advisor is able to quickly develop some good questions, some good insights, and the clients are feeling more heard. The advisors are feeling like they're making deeper and more meaningful connections around the financial planning issues that they're dealing with their clients. And so, I mean, right, this is table stakes for advisors. It's all about sitting down with your clients and working through issues. So let's look at a prompt that people could use to set up an agenda coming for a client meeting that's about to happen. And so, Doug, first of all, let me get this up on my screen. Let me get the share going, Doug.
Yep. Okay, we've got it.
All right, can you see that?
We can.
So, yeah, so let's talk about we have a client coming in, right? And so here's a basic prompt. And in our program, we teach, a prompting framework. It's more or less referred to as role, task, format, context, questions, and examples. All right. And the thing is, when you're engaging AI, it's not a Google search. It's not 2 or 3 terms. You can use ChatGPT to search like a search engine, right? But we're not talking about that. We're talking about collaborating with it. And so you don't enter, 2 or 3 words. You enter 3, 4 sentences, and to kick off a conversation and a back and forth to achieve whatever it is you're trying to achieve, right? And so with this particular prompt, let's have a look at it. This is the basic framework here. And so the first sentence of the prompt simply is telling the AI, I have a client coming in for a meeting tomorrow, right? And then the client you share the client's age, and then you say, and recently, and then you share the context, right? Context is so important with these prompts. And here, I have written on the screen, the context is a brief description of a major financial event or life change. And context in any interaction with an AI is giving it the kind of, the who, what, when, where, and why. What is going on? What are you trying to get an answer to? What do you need help with? And when you tell that to the AI, it's going to help it with the manner in which it's going to shape some answers or ask some follow-up questions for you to get the best results. Okay, so that's the context there, right there. And then we say to the model, let's brainstorm a concise, professional 45-minute agenda that starts with open-ended client-first discussion, then transitions into a planning conversation. And then we say, also include key questions I should consider asking, insights, frameworks, or planning concepts that may be helpful to reference, and then ask me questions to get the best results, okay? Remember I said role, task, format, context, questions, and examples. The questions thing at the end of your prompt, ask me questions to get the best results. Tells the AI if it isn't 100% clear about exactly what you're looking, it's going to print back to the screen some questions it wants you to answer. And when you answer those questions, what are you doing? You're giving it even more context, and that context is then the gold that delivers, the amazing answers. Okay. And so for this particular prompt, I have some set up here below, some sample context. And so I'm saying in this prompt, and we'll do a live run through here and see. It's always dangerous to do these things live, but we'll take a look. But I'm saying here, that the client context is that the advisor is 75 years old. He just sold a $5 million apartment complex. He's conservative in his investing. He's entering retirement. He doesn't need income from the proceeds, but wants help exploring investment options, tax strategy, and legacy planning. Okay. So that is what we're going to. Let's go live over to ChatGPT. Get over here for a second. Get some things out of the way here. So what shall we do here? Let me copy this prompt here. Put it right there. Then I'm gonna fill in some of the context, right? The client is 75, and then the brief description, I'm going to go and take this description here and just kind of put all that in there. So I've gone ahead and pasted that sentence or two that I gave you before about him being conservative, entering retirement, what he needs. Then the purpose is the context that we just gave it right there. So I'm pasting it twice, and just in a different spot. I'm going to go back and I'm going to probably just leave those in. Then it says, let's brainstorm the professional, include questions. Yeah, right. Let's see what happens here. So, close. Doug, how's that looking on the screen, by the way?
It looks great.
All right, let's see. Bring it down. 45-minute agenda. Warm up. Begin with opening questions. Let the client share. Establish rapport. Frame the big picture. Summarize what you've heard. So it's kind of giving directions here to the advisor about how to think about running the meeting with the client. Then it gets into some of the framing of the big picture items, the taxes, investments, the legacy, preserve, protect, pass it on as a conversation for the legacy discussion. Then, discussion about risk tolerance, liquidity preferences, strategies consistent with his conservative positioning, some reference to bonds, structured notes, tax-efficient funds, preservation-oriented vehicles. Then we get a section here on tax and estate planning considerations, right? And so we're looking at, is this possibly going to be a 1031 real estate transaction? There's some mention here about charitable remainder trusts and donor advised funds and other things that could come into play. By the way, this is the AI's very first pass. We don't really have the full agenda here. But it's coming, it's saying, it's asking a series of questions like, for you to talk about with the advisor, right? What do you see as, for the client, what do you see as the primary purpose of these proceeds? What worries you about managing this wealth? How do you want your family to benefit from this wealth, right? Now, these are all questions, of course, that any good advisor has in the back of his mind. But what is so great here is that the AI model has quickly sussed out the situation and integrated it into a first pass of great questions for the advisor to use and guide his or her conversation with the client, right? And then there's a whole section here on investment orientation, more questions. Given that you don't need the income as your main concern, preservation of capital, keeping pace with inflation or the legacy, how much liquidity do you really want? Then there's the tax stuff. And then, we even get into helpful frameworks and planning concepts like the three bucket framework and some tax mitigation tools, estate planning, simplification, some behavioral framing. And so at the very end here, we get some questions from the model. The questions are now going out to the advisor, and they're saying, do you know if the client has heirs or specific philanthropic interests? Do they already have an estate plan, trusts and wills? Was there any tax planning done prior to the sale? What role do you want to play in terms of being the planner and the quarterback here, or I guess it's saying to the client, right? um, versus bringing in your existing estate and tax teams. All right. And so the AI model says, would you like me to draft a one-page client handout framework? Anyway, so you can see here that this is kicking off some back and forth, and it won't take much for the advisor to pull together something. Now, let's do a quick trick here. Let's go back. I've now changed the models. I've gone from 5.0, which is the new one, to 4.0, which is one I happen to prefer myself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the prompt again. I'm going to put it down there. And I'm just curious to see what to demonstrate really how we might get something a little different because we've changed the models. And I don't want to open up the can of worms necessarily about all the different models, but you can see here, this would have been my preference. And in our class, I tell everybody to go to ChatGPT 4.0. I like this a little better. It's coming in with a framework for the meeting, opening conversation, values, visions, and goals. And then it has some questions again for the client. Then it's framing the planning conversation. It just has a little bit different tone, and but still hitting on all the key questions that we just went through. But it's in a different way, and it's a little more human. I kind of describe. I was writing something the other. It's kind of like the difference between a Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, right? Buffett's kind of his personality and tones kind of warm and homespun, right? And Munger was like, super rational and just always trying to cut to the chase. And so ChatGPT 5 on our first pass gave us an agenda outline that was being very deep and logical and cutting right to the chase. The 4.0 version here is giving us, kind of a different take on it. And it's one that I consistently tend to prefer. So here we've been able to show again, in just a matter of minutes, two fairly different frameworks for meeting with the client. And then there's a little table here that's set up with some of the concepts that you may be discussing with the client, right? Preserve, protect, pass on, the bucket plan, core satellite, donor advised funds, kind of some of the technical, even mentions the legacy letter there at the end. But anyway, we'll stop right at this point, Doug. And our goal was simply to show in just a matter of minutes with a small amount of context that revealed no personal identifiable information of the client, we're able to kick off a very useful and insightful agenda framework that any advisor could use to take it a step further. You copy and paste it, and make it even more of your own. Some advisors in our classes are like, yes, give me a version of this agenda that I can even send to the client in an email in advance of the meeting to get him or her thinking about what we're going to discuss. And so you can just see that work that we just demonstrated, showing two different approaches to the meeting with the client. Any one of them would have taken a very smart advisor 45 minutes or more to pull together, and we just pulled them together within 10 minutes. So and again, I always say, we're being AI forward. We're not being AI first. You're still in control. You're still running the meeting. You're still directing the AI model. We're not offloading 100% of this task to the model. We're using it in a collaborative way so that we can do a better job of delivering value to our clients, right? And we're able to do that by kind of bringing knowledgeable and considered opinions and insights about the issue we're going to be discussing with the client. And that co-intelligence that the advisor works with is able to land that whole issue, extremely well.
So if there's an advisor who wants to start implementing this AI co-intelligence, they want to start enhancing their own intelligence through the use of AI and save themselves time and have more productive meetings, et cetera, et cetera. What's the best way that they can grow that skill set?
Yeah, well, to go back to Ethan Malik again, Malik says a professional knowledge worker, right? So that covers financial advisors and a whole, score of other people, right? He thinks you need about 8 to 10 hours of really interacting with these models in a structured way to get over the hump and really see how they can assist you in doing a much better job. And so, I took that to heart, the 8 to 10 hours, and we've built the AI powered financial advisor program around that benchmark. And so when advisors go through that, we learned the ChatGPT interface, which has been evolving and growing. And in the 1 year, just yesterday, I was going through and looking at all the modes, all the features, all the different things you can do. And there's quite a lot, probably over 40. But I'm looking at them and saying, okay, now what are the 10 or 12 key things that we want to spend time in our AI powered financial advisor program with advisors, looking at those elements of the ChatGPT interface and applying it very specifically, to their work. And this client agenda item was just one example, but that's what we're doing in the program. And our goal is really to take those dabblers that are out there who really sense something is going on. It is powerful, but they haven't gotten over the hump for any variety of reasons. And by going through the program, working with other advisors, following our program modules that step through, learning how to use the tool, learning how to think about it in terms of engagement with your clients, learning how to use it with marketing, learning how to bring your team along with this, and then also to have a framework for, a framework of kind of basic AI principles that the advisor should be thinking about as they are, interweaving this new technology into their daily workflow. And frankly, I believe, people's workflows are going to be changing quite a lot over the next 36 months. But the foundational knowledge that you're getting about understanding how to talk to the model, get answers back, and go deeper on things, how to, move up and down the ladder of AI usage. There's all sorts of ways you can use it in short, quick ways. You can use it to develop, a marketing content or client communications. You go all the way up to the top of the ladder at the fullest level of engagement, where you're really, struggling with, strategic issues about your business or issues that your clients may be challenged by, and you're able to tap these very, very smart AIs to garner their insights to extend and expand your own insights so that the value you're bringing to your clients is the best ever. And so that is, what the program is all about. That's what I think that 54% of advisors who are dabbling need to go through in order to join their colleagues who are at the leading edge now, 25% using it every day. So that's what we're looking to do. I think the class starts, when is it?
Next Thursday, the
Next Thursday,
18th.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. And we'll be there 2 hours a day, virtual, in a Zoom, and 2 hours a day, 2 hours a week, 2 hours a session, I should say, 4 sessions in a row, 4 weeks in a row. And then we have an optional 1 hour clinic where people from the class come in and we kind of talk in a more unstructured manner about what their experiences were, trying out these things, so on. And so that's a lot of fun as well. So yeah, that's what we got on tap for everybody, Doug.
Great. Well, thank you, Sean. And so everybody, remember, it's not just about the prompts. It's about the day-to-day collaboration. And if you do want to dive in deeper, we'd love to have you in the upcoming workshop. Just go to horsesmouth.com/AI to find out more and join and have